Hello, this video is over cellular processes. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to identify the major processes of a cell. We'll be talking about how cells create energy. So let's get started. Make sure you take your C notes so that you are able to do your warm-up when you get to class. Energy is required to fuel all cellular processes. The conversion of energy into forms that are more easily used by the cell is carried out through two major processes, photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Photosynthesis occurs within organelles called chloroplasts. Cellular respiration occurs partially in the cytoplasm and partially in the mitochondria, while some other organisms, such as plants, photosynthesize. All cells perform cellular respiration. Photosynthesis is the conversion of radiant energy, or sunlight, to chemical energy, or glucose, which is sugar. This conversion occurs through the reaction of carbon dioxide and water to produce glucose and sugar and oxygen. The equation for this reaction is shown. This process is carried out in the chloroplasts of autotrophs. Remember that autotrophs are organisms that produce their own food and serve as producers for the rest of the food web. The chemical energy generated by photosynthesis is passed up the food chain through each trophic level. Adenosine triphosphate, or abbreviated ATP, is used by living things to release and store energy. When the third phosphate is removed from ATP, energy is released. This energy can be used to power cellular energy. After losing the phosphate, the molecule is now adenosine diphosphate, or ADP, and contains less energy. During cellular respiration, energy is used to add a phosphate, converting ADP to ATP. In summary, cells are able to use and charge energy in these molecules, making them similar to batteries. Here is the chemical structure of ATP. If you notice, this looks like a structure of RNA, and that's because it is. So the adenine is the nitrogen base in the blue circle. The ribose sugar makes it RNA, and the phosphate group is in green. Right, here is a picture of the cycle of ADP and ATP. So if you notice, at the top it is adenosine triphosphate because there are three phosphates. When it loses a phosphate to become energy going around to the left, because of an enzyme, it becomes adenosine diphosphate at the bottom. And then another enzyme will add that energy back in and it will become ATP again. Cellular respiration is the conversion of chemical energy and glucose to ATP. Remember that ATP is the energy storage molecule that is most easily used by the cell. The conversion of glucose to ATP occurs in one of two pathways, aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration. Step one of both processes is glycolysis, which produces two ATPs. In aerobic respiration, 36 more ATP are produced in the second step. In anaerobic respiration, no additional ATP are produced after glycolysis. Instead, molecules needed for glycolysis to resume are replenished. Glycolysis is the process of breaking down glucose, a 6-carbon sugar, into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid, a 3-carbon molecule. This reaction occurs in the cell's cytoplasm. Glycolysis is the first step in cellular respiration. While 2 ATP molecules are needed to begin the reaction, 4 molecules of ATP are generated for a net gain of 2 ATP molecules. Aerobic respiration is the process of storing energy into ATP molecules by using oxygen. This aerobic respiration, there are 2 additional steps after glycolysis. These 2 additional steps are called the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain. Both occurs in the mitochondria. These processes convert pyruvic acid molecules from glycolysis into carbon dioxide and water and give the cell a net gain of 36 ATP molecules. Because of this, aerobic respiration is the most efficient type of cellular respiration. Under normal conditions, when oxygen is present, all eukaryotic cells prefer aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration occurs only in eukaryotic cells. While bacteria do not have mitochondria, some bacteria are able to use their cellular membrane for aerobic respiration. So here is the equation for aerobic cellular respiration. And it gives you some little graphics to help you understand it. I mentioned that one of the next part of aerobic respiration is the Krebs cycle. So here's a little bit of history. It was discovered by Hans Krebs in 1937. He received the Nobel Peace Prize in physiology or medicine in 1953 for this discovery, but he was forced to leave Germany prior to World War II because he was Jewish. So a summary of the Krebs cycle: it requires oxygen. It is it's a cyclical series of oxidation reactions that give up carbon dioxide and produce 1 ATP per cycle. But it turns twice per molecule of glucose, so that's why it produces 2 ATPs. And it takes place in the matrix of the mitochondria, which is the folded parts. Each turn of the Krebs cycle also produces other molecules. It produces 3 NADH, 1 FADH2, and 2 carbon dioxides. So therefore, each glucose molecule, the Krebs cycle produces 6 NADH, 2 FADH2, 4 carbon dioxides, and 2 ATPs. The most important part for you to remember is that it releases 2 ATPs. Here's a picture of the Krebs cycle where it starts at the top and then it goes through this cycle and shows where it is releasing certain molecules. The electron transport chain produces 34 ATP molecules. It also produces water, occurs inside the inner part of the mitochondrial membrane, and uses some coenzymes to produce the ATPs. Anaerobic respiration, also called fermentation, is the process of storing energy into ATP molecules without using oxygen. This process occurs completely in the cytoplasm. Note that the second half of anaerobic respiration allows glycolysis to continue, but it does not provide any ATP directly. Anaerobic respiration produces NAD+ needed for glycolysis. There are 2 different methods to produce this NAD+. In lactic acid fermentation, pyruvic acid is converted to lactic acid, which makes you very sore when you work out. In alcoholic fermentation, the pyruvic acid is converted into alcohol. Anaerobic bacteria carry out this type of cellular respiration. Some eukaryotic cells will utilize anaerobic respiration when the supply of oxygen is low. For example, human muscles will use lactic acid fermentation to extend periods of exercise. This is why you get sore. Anaerobic respiration equals fermentation, which means they mean the same thing. It's taking energy from glucose in the absence of oxygen. Alcoholic fermentation: when oxygen is not present, yeast cells and some bacteria will produce carbon dioxide and ethyl alcohol. Converting pyruvic acid into ethyl and carbon dioxide, you'll make beer, wine, bread, and ethanol. Lactic acid fermentation is the process that supplies energy when oxygen is scarce. It happens during strenuous exercise, which is when your cells run out of oxygen, and when you experience muscle fatigue and soreness, it's caused by the buildup of lactic acid, which is why it's important to stretch after your exercise to release that acid and drink a lot of water. So here's a diagram of respiration and how it works. You notice the glucose goes in, and all of it starts with glycolysis, which occurs in the cytoplasm and releases 2 ATP. Anaerobic stops here, whereas aerobic will move to the mitochondria. It will go through the Krebs cycle, which releases ATP, and then it will go through the electron transport chain, which again releases ATP and water. This is the end of this video, so make sure you have taken your notes. We will talk about them in class, and if you have any questions, you can ask then. See you then. Bye.